Hello, hello, and welcome to the Dr. Talk Show. Um, and I hope I'm going to have a bit of a glitch because I just realized that my computer has picked up on the wrong Wi-Fi. So I'm hoping that okay, and we're back on the right Wi-Fi. Great. Um, So, hello, I'm Dr. Catherine TOOMER. I'm a family medicine and community health physician. I'm the founder of Total Weight Care Institute and also the founder of Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Centers. And what I spend my life doing is trying to make sure that people get access to treatment, weight care treatment, as well as holistic weight care treatment for everybody who needs it and to treat the whole person, as well as also making sure that they get acceptance and they're not dealing with obesity bias and fat phobia because I dealt with that before I lost my 100 pounds. And I still deal with that quite a bit with my patients. Um, and then also advocacy to make sure that people don't lose access to their medication because that's been happening more and more, especially this year. So, having said all that, Happy New Year. A belated Happy Founders Day to my sorority sisters, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And I hope I'm coming through clearly. It doesn't look like the signal's all that strong. So, forgive me if I start coming in and out. Hello, Marcia. Thank you for joining me from Barbados. So, if anyone else is here, say hello. Tell me where you're listening from, or if you're listening later, put hashtag replay and also let me know where you're listening from. It's always nice to know how far and wide people come in to listen. So we're still in the uh, New Year's resolution phase. Now, there is a there's actually what's called, I guess, a resolution death day, which is usually the second Friday of of January. When by the time we reach that day, most people have given up their New Year's resolutions. I'm not a big fan of resolutions, and I'm going to tell you why. Resolutions are a setup for failure. They're set up for making you feel like you're a failure when in fact you're not. Basically, by setting resolutions, often what that means is that we're looking at ourselves as if something's wrong, as if something needs to be fixed, as though we're inadequate. And so, just by creating resolutions, we often just send that's a message. This is some subliminal message we're sending to ourselves. Now, there's nothing wrong with setting goals as long as they're set well and they're set in a smart way. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. However, just waiting until the first of the year to set up all these changes that you want to make is a setup for failure. And usually it's because we add all of our things together. I want to eat better. I'm going to eat more vegetables. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to, lose weight. I'm going to get better sleep. I'm going to wake up in the morning every day at 5 o'clock. I'm going to go to the gym and all these things. And you put them all together and you clump them all together. And if any one of them falls, they all fall. And then what that does is it makes us feel like we failed at something when in fact we're not. It's not you failing at anything, it's the process failing you. And so there's a better way of doing this. And mainly what it is take the habits you already have worked out for yourself, the ones that you already know work for you, and then you tweak them. We know we eat 3, 4 times a day or however many times a day. So what you do is you make changes within the meal. You don't change the whole meal. You just add some vegetables to the ones you're already eating. Or, if you say, well, I am going to stop eating pizza. Well, if you love pizza, why stop eating it? Just make it a different kind of pizza. You can change the crust to a cauliflower crust, or you can change it from a thick crust to a thin crust. And that's still going to make it better because it drops the carbohydrates. Add more meat to your pizza, add more vegetables to your pizza. You don't have to stop eating pizza, just make it a healthier one. Same thing with every meal. You don't have to completely change your meal. If you know you like eating pasta, just add more vegetables and meat to your pasta. So that way it shifts it away from the carbohydrates towards something that's higher protein and higher fiber. Those are the type of things that you make changes. And so, hello, Linda from Michigan. Thank you for joining. And yeah, Marcia said her resolutions usually get broken before the end of the month, so she doesn't keep them anymore. Exactly. And then all that does is set you up and feel like, oh gosh, there's something wrong with me because I don't have the willpower or the discipline to manage these things. So the best thing to do is you've already worked out the things that work for you. You've already worked them out and you have these habits. You get up at the same time at certain times of the day. You eat at certain times of the day. You eat certain foods that you enjoy. You use a certain way of it's like sort of like saying, I drive to work every day the same way and I want to get to work faster. So I'm going to change my route rather than just change your speed. Not saying you should drive any faster, but you know what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying? Do exactly the same thing you've always been doing, just change how you do it. Um, and the other way is to set goals. You can set goals any time of the year. You can set goals for anything. And the way you do this is what we call SMART goals. And what that means is that you want to be able to make something, you want to change things, and you have to make sure the S stands for very specific. If you just say generally, oh, I'm going to exercise more, that's not a very specific goal. The goal is if I'm going to exercise 3 days a week or at least 2 days a week, that is more specific. The other is that the M stands for measurable. So if you say M, like 2 days a week, the two measures, so you can always measure that goal. And if you don't have a measurement, you have no way of knowing if you're successful in achieving that goal. So very specific, and it should be measurable. And it should make sense. Now, I knew this was going to happen because I didn't write it down. I was going to forget what the SMART stands for. But the A stands for accountable, or basically achievable. So you want it to be realistic, essentially, but that's the R. But anyway, you want to be able to achieve what you're going to set out to. Now, if you say things like, I'm going to climb Mount Everest in 2025, I mean, you might be able to achieve that, but how can you be, and can you have accountability to kind of get you there? Well, so you just want your goals to be achievable and are realistic. So, if you make it too grandiose or too large, they don't have to be big goals. They can be little goals, and they can be little goals and little increments along the way. And then T is time. You want to make sure you set a time limit on when you're going to achieve that goal. So I'm sure I messed something up in there, and it's going to come to me later. The A, anyone can kind of chime in if they remember what the A stands for. I think I got it right. But anyway, so you want to be able to make sure that you add a time limit to what it is that you're going to do. So yes, I'm going to do something very specific. For me, my goal is to build more muscle. So I'm going to build more muscle by working out daily, at least one muscle group daily. So that is very specific. And that is also is measurable because it's every day and it's one muscle group. That's every day. And it makes sense. It's obtainable. So, it makes sense and I can achieve it. And so that's again something very realistic in that I am able to take 10 to 15 minutes to work out each day. And I am going to when it comes to timing, now you can do this as the amount of time. You can do it as, so I'm going to make sure that I am going to work out every day on a certain muscle group at least 15 minutes daily. That's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it gives amount of time. Now, what I can say is if I were to be, there's another way that you can do timing by a certain time. So I can say that I'm going to work out every day, each muscle group, and sustain it for at least 6 months. Or I can build a muscle group to be viewable so I can see my muscles by a certain time. Although I find timing of how much time you put into something, I find that easier for me than setting long-term goals. Or you could, like savings, for example, if you say I'm going to save $1,000 by, say, March 30th. And so that's very specific. You can definitely measure it if it's achievable and it's realistic and you've given yourself a time. So that is another way of looking at it. Marcia says, what you're saying makes so much sense. Setting goals instead of making resolutions. And it's really true because you can set goals. You can set mini goals for the day. You can set long-term goals for the month. You can set long-term goals for the year, for the decade. But, so when you do little goals, like for me, it's just, I'm going to wake up by a certain time in the morning. That's a very achievable goal. Now, if I say I'm going to wake up every single morning at 5 a.m., I know I'm setting myself up for failure because it's not going to happen. So, what I can do is a mini goal. Tomorrow, I will wake up, get out of bed at 5 a.m. and start working on something. And then the next day, I can say, yes, I'm going to do it again. Now, those are still goals. Those are still achievable. Those are still things you can use to pat yourself on the back. But when you just put all these goals together, like all the resolutions together, like I'm going to, eat better, which again is very vague. I'm going to get healthier, again, very vague. I'm going to get stronger, again, very vague. Those things are very hard to then measure to tell if you're even achieving those things, especially on a bad day. You might not be able to see it. We don't always see our wins. So, the best way to achieve your New Year's resolutions is not even to make them. And that is why. So I know this was rather quick. If anyone has any questions about anything health, wellness, and weight care related, you can ask me now. Otherwise, you can send me emails at help@drtoomer.com and I can answer them in my next broadcast. The other thing you can do is also write me messages on my YouTube channel underneath the video, and I do see them and I do respond. But the other thing I wanted to do, and even my nose running a little bit, I wanted to talk to you also about my new venture. It's called Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Group, and it's a group of doctors. And what we do is we cover the United States for telemedicine, compounded GLP-1 medication access. What's happened as a result of insurance companies dropping a lot of life-saving medications, basically the GLP-1 medications, a lot of people have lost access. And so what I've done is I see a problem, I try to fix it. And so I saw that there was a gap. I'm trying to fill that gap. And so for anyone who's interested in, learning more or gaining access to medication they've lost, or they've decided this is the year you're just going to just take charge and use some because you think something else is going on, you can again write to me at help@drtoomer.com. I'm going to put it in the comments. Toomer.com. And it doesn't even have to really be a coherent email, as long as it just says help. No, I'll write you back and we'll figure out what we can do to help. All right. So if you don't have any questions tonight, I know this was kind of quick. And I do appreciate those of you who come every single week, and it really does give me a boost. And so thank you. And Linda from Michigan. I'm from Ann Arbor. I don't know if you know that, Linda. Yeah, so it's always nice. Although I did go to Michigan State, but that's okay. I'm a Spartan and a Wolverine. So if there aren't any questions, so what I'd like you to do for homework, I'm going to give you some homework today. It's a little different. I want you to take a goal, write it down, and say, what your goal is, and see if it's specific, if it's measurable, if it's achievable, if it's realistic, and then make sure you put in the amount of time or the time that you're going to achieve that goal. and do that for it can be any goal you want. And it doesn't have to even be, it can be even something like, I'm going to make sure that I'll call, 2 old friends every week so that I can reconnect and check on them and see how they're doing. Or a family member. It doesn't have to be some huge self-development thing. It can just be something that you've decided you're going to do and you're going to stick to. I can tell you one of the goals I set led to me being here tonight. I wanted to prove to myself that I could show up every week for something consistent. I had convinced myself that I wasn't very consistent in being able to do just about anything, that I didn't have a lot of willpower and I didn't have a lot of discipline. So, one of the things I did was I started doing lives every single week. And I started interviewing other doctors every week. And what happened is that consistency led to my being here and convincing myself when I was offered to do this show for blackdoctor.org that I could do it because I had already been doing it once a week. And that was a challenge I had given myself. And that was a goal I had set for myself. And it wasn't a New Year's resolution. It was simply a goal and something I wanted to prove to myself I could do. So, sometimes those little things lead to bigger things. So, all right. Well, if you have no questions, I do appreciate you coming again. Just put in hashtag replay if you're watching later. Tell me where you're watching from, and also just post any questions, and I will answer them. Um, Mark said this was quick but thorough. Thanks, Doctor. Love the hat. Thank you. Um, have a good night. See you next week, and keep consistent because I look forward to seeing you. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you too. All right. Good night. Have a good evening.